Hello.
Hello. Hello and good morning.
There we
welcome
go.
to Diversity Beyond the Checkbox. I am Nick West, the Summit Programming Coalition co-leader. Panelists, can you turn on your cameras and your mics? It looks like we're almost all here. So unfortunately, the moderator is having an issue, so we're just going to be delayed. So I know we're starting a few minutes late. So hopefully we get her technical issues worked out shortly here. I'm going to run through kind of what's going to happen in this panel in the meantime while she's trying to get that sorted out, and then we'll get going. So this will be a 40-minute panel, and I'll come back and talk about the salon session, which will follow this panel briefly. Then we'll go into the salon session for 10 minutes, and then we'll have a 15-minute recap. So those are kind of the next things after the panel. So it'll be about 40 minutes, then 10, then 15. So I'm going to see if I've got any updates in terms of our moderator, or maybe we can have an impromptu moderator until she arrives, because technical difficulties are so fun in a virtual summit, right?
I love
it. Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, maybe since she's not here quite yet, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves so we don't lose too much time. And then when she arrives, hopefully we can move the panel forward.
Sweet. Excellent. My name is Chris Copeland. I'm a director/producer at DreamWorks Animation.
Hi, I'm Kiana Kelly. I am Director Digital Marketing for Viacom CBS.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julianne Cromit. I'm an equity and inclusion strategist and also on the Women in Animation board serving as secretary.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rosie Zagarcheva. I am the Director of Operations for TV's Game Studio in North America.
No, Maria. So I'm just thinking, because we're running, we're already about 6 minutes behind, if we should just rock and roll. What do you guys think? How do you feel like flying without a moderator for a few minutes?
I'm totally down with jumping in.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, you guys are all amazing. So without further ado, we'll go into this panel. There are some truly brilliant minds here and hearts, and these are just amazing people. So I'm so excited for you and for me to learn from them. So bye, guys. See you later.
Thank you.
So when she said we're going to start this panel, did she mean that we're going to just moderate it ourselves? Is that what was?
Yes, I think that's what we're doing.
Is that what was suggested when Nick rolled out?
I think so.
Great. All right, here we go. Let's jump on.
We're going to do our best Marie between the four.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. We'll get our Marie on. But Marie had those dope glasses on yesterday. No one commented on that. I meant to make a comment about how her glasses were dope. They were insane, and I didn't say anything. And I feel like we did.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's jump in.
We all have glasses on a side note, which is kind of amazing.
That's the thing. That was
yes.
the thing. That was why I noticed. I was like, yo, I'm not doing that. She's got the dope glasses. Anyway. All right, so how should we start this off, guys? Like, I don't know how to launch this conversation. I wasn't prepared for this.
Well, I think Marie was going to start us off with a wonderful quote from Angela Davis.
Yeah.
Have us kind of round table. So I'll just read the quote. I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept.
Yes.
And I think she was going to kick it off with us just going around and spitting out some of the things that we can accept. So, here she is.
Look at this.
Right on time.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah.
And the glasses are here.
And the glasses. And the glasses.
Yes.
Oh my
on,
goodness. It was a, Safari versus Chrome war on this side of town, apparently.
Yeah.
Hey, these are the things. However, I really do like that there was a power kickoff. So I'm not a person to stand in the way of good progress. So
honestly, we didn't get far at all. You should probably just
like, for real, Yeah, Marie, you were the progress. That was the issue.
Yeah, and
was,
Kiana just read the Angela Davis quote and asking us that you wanted us to ruminate on about what is the thing that we cannot accept.
Absolutely. And so with that being said, please, Kiana, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I cannot accept eagerness and eagerness to say that you want to make a change, but then there's no follow through, there's no action. Don't tell me you're listening, don't tell me that you care, and then you did nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's dope.
What about you, Rosie?
Oh, it's a bit of a story and a journey for me. I come from Bulgaria, which is a very homogenous country. And even though I've lived in the US for 20 years at this point, in the past couple of years, I've done a lot of attempts to grow and learn. And I got to the very profound sort of humbling realization how much I am yet to understand about everything that's going on. And I've tried to read and ask and learn, and I think I've gotten to the point where I have a better understanding of everything that I have and I've been given, and everything that I should use, all the privileges or opportunities that I have to help others in better ways. And my commitment and what I've personally kind of decided to do is, on a minute-to-minute, day-to-day basis, stand up, speak up, support others, never let a moment or an instant of lack of inclusion be there without me doing something about it. And the other commitment is to continue to learn. That is a lifelong journey for me.
So you're not prepared to accept inaction on your own part in terms of what you're bringing to the table.
Yes. Thank you for summarizing that.
That's phenomenal. No, not at all. Chris, come on.
I cannot accept any more of these unnecessary damn hurdles. I just feel like there's just, it's like it's directly connected to what Kiana was saying. It's like this desire for action, this call to action, the clear presence of hurdles, whether socioeconomic, creatively. And it's a limitation on imagination. It's a limitation on experience. It's a limitation on activating people. I'm done with that. And I'm just like, we have to get to a place of activation for ourselves and activating the people around us. And so I'm just very much done with any hurdle in a way that is easily eliminated by just moving it to the side. So
I'm resonating with everything that I'm hearing thus far. If it were, in the days where you would be giving each other snaps.
This is my little brother with two older brothers energy, by the way. It's like, why are we doing that? Let's do the other thing, so that's sort of what it's arrived to.
Julianne, come on, fire starter.
I have so many things. But one thing I cannot stand any longer is a lack of accountability for change. I cannot stand, and it goes with what everybody's saying, which is I cannot stand that things are continued to supposedly to be tried, or people, to your point, Kiana, say they're going to do something and they do nothing, but then there's no accountability against inaction. And so I will not stand for a lack of accountability any longer. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I also will not stand for erasure any longer, and specifically erasure of women in history and women of color, very specifically in history. And it's Women's History Month, so I feel like I absolutely need to say that, because we have been erased through so many things, and that has got to change, because at the end of the day, we're always leading and we're always changing things, and Black women are at the center of that. So I just want to say that explicitly as well.
Thank you. Well, I will go ahead and put some skin in the game. I think when I think about that, for me, a huge part of it is that I will not stand another moment for there to need to be a justification as to why this matters. I think that we are beyond that. I think that we constantly find ourselves in this space where we do have to either find whether it is a moral justification, a business case, you name it. We constantly find ourselves in this space where it seems as though we're essentially being asked to justify why this really matters. And then the other piece of it for me is that I'm simply not going to stand the idea that I don't think that that we've done enough already up until this point to create a platform for understanding. And I know that sounds a little bit complicated, but I feel like as King would always say, riots are the language of the unheard. And I feel like we've been in a space in this country and around the world where the riots have been raging for generations and generations and generations. And so this kind of gets back to a little bit of what Rosie was saying in terms of there needing to be a space for us to truly just be listening. But I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to spend some time with each of you, and you certainly all in your respective spaces. I think have been pushing and advocating and trying to make real the things that we're talking about in terms of moving beyond the checkbox. And so I thought that just a good place for us to start would be to give each of you an opportunity to share a little bit about something where you feel like where you've made inroads, what are, so when we hold up this idea of moving beyond the checkbox and finding ways to advance inclusion, certainly for me in the storytelling realm, a lot of it is about giving people that sense of what's possible when you move from this idea of the quote unquote known to the unknown world. So anybody want to start with that?
For me, I feel like, I don't know, man, I'm down to open the dialogue. I feel like, grown up single mom household, 4 kids, south side of Chicago. There's nothing in that descriptive that says director. By the way, co-director with my brother Justin, my creative partner, co-director and co-creative at DreamWorks Animation. And so the ridiculousness of it to me is sort of, I ventured out here. My cat is yelling at me. I don't know why. I'm about to NyQuil her in about 8 seconds. But I ventured out here just in this desire to go like this entertainment, this industry, the creative atmosphere was built. It was built by individuals who prior to them building it, it didn't exist. The normal was that it didn't exist, and they said, let's try things and let's do things. And from that, its existence sort of sprouted. And it's clear, right? It's clear that the power holders there was a specific identity for the power holders. In America, white American men were the power holders. And at that place, this identity and this core value of experimentation, of trying, of giving, it just stopped. It ceased. And it was because there were hand holdings and there was, I owe this person and this person owe me, and power, right? And I just feel like we have so many examples of resets and restarts. And I think when I was talking to some students at USC recently, and I was saying this pandemic is such an amazing restart, right? Because this was our, I feel like God or the universe was like, here's an example of equality, a disease that will kill all of you. I don't care what you look like or how rich you are, this thing will murder you all. So there's equality. And through that, it really reset the landscape in a lot of ways. And so for me, I just feel like this is the latest reset, this pandemic, this disease, the latest reset. And now we have this ability to go like, there are no parameters. There are no more social parameters. There are no more hurdles, no dumbass hurdles where it's like, oh, you owe this or you owe that. No, it's create from this experience, create from your journey, create from that, And now you have streaming platforms that are offering up amazing opportunities. You have YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, like the ground to really go and build is so fertile. And I feel like the individuals that are in power at the studios, if they're not checking those things and seeing the diversity of voices and stories and imagination out there, that is the largest fail that I think we bring out of this experience. It's like, not only is it, I don't know, ethically, morally responsible, but sustainability, like financially responsible to diversify the things that you're putting on your screen, that you're putting in your video games. Like, it just makes so much sense to me. And so I'm like, there's no, I don't know, there is no grounds anymore for silencing or restricting the accessibility. And it's so it's asinine to me. I'm like, I don't fit the description. I don't. I'm a high school dropout from the south side of Chicago, man. Like, I'm not the one, but I create and I have a vision and I've learned things and I've seen things and I've been given an opportunity. There have been individuals who given an opportunity, you know?
100%. I'm going to get a few more folks in here, but I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to come back to you, and I want you to really take us through something in particular that's happening in your shop over at DreamWorks, where you feel like, okay, this was a moment where we were really advancing this agenda in a way that felt like authentic and real. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about that. But I'm slightly privileged to know Julianne because, of course, as many of you out there know, she has been a tireless advocate and certainly has been advancing this work most recently in her time with the Walt Disney Company and with our studios team. And I have to say that this year and this past year, and having spent a considerable amount of that time with you, I can honestly say that I know what it looks like when somebody's kind of in the eye of that storm and really trying to help guide a Titanic around these types of issues. But I'm wondering now that you are maybe having a little bit of time and separation, when you look back on this past year, where is that moment for you where you feel like, okay, this is different, we're showing up differently?
Thanks for that, Marie. And it's been a pleasure being in the trenches with you, so to speak, over the last year. Everybody, Marie, I don't know if she'll plug it, but check out Soul of a Nation on ABC every Tuesday night at 10 Eastern and Pacific, because Marie is the force behind that. And it's incredible programming to check out. So Marie, I'm going to selfishly plug that right back on this panel. So thank you for that work. It was one of the amazing outputs of this last year. And Marie was right behind all of that. I would say, for me, what is a marking of, I've been doing this work for 12 years in media and tech. And a couple of observations. I have never seen an energy quite like the one we have right now in terms of a real desire. And Rosie, you were speaking to this in your own comments, right? Which is a real desire that I actually believe from a lot of people wanting to move the ball forward. And for me, the last year has really been about harnessing that energy, Chris, to your point, because it's a moment of disruption. It's a moment of change that we have to capture. And the argument I've always said is you either do this or you become irrelevant. That's it, end of the day, because somebody is going to disrupt you. It's just how it's going to be. This is what it means to be innovative, right? And this is now an inextricably linked concept, which is to be innovative is to be inclusive. And so what I think I'm started to see over the last year is a higher level of innovation than I've ever seen around this space. And what I mean by that is not thinking necessarily in the programmatic way, which is like, oh, we'll start a program, right? We'll do outreach, right? Which is, by the way, all well and good. It's good stuff, right? But it actually doesn't get underneath at that structural stuff, which is what we're really talking about. It's not glamorous, everybody. We all know this on this panel, and a lot of you in the audience know, it is not glamorous to get underneath on the structural issues of what really needs to change. And that's everything from who's in different decision maker seats, right, to who's being hired to tell the stories, to what stories are we telling, right, and how are we telling them, and how are we involving community in that storytelling, community-based thinking in that storytelling, which is also not to put the onus on any one person to be the representative of their entire community, which I cannot say enough, right? And so what I've started to see is a real embrace of both the community kind of first thinking, a much broader sense of what that means. And I've also started to see folks move away from the programmatic piece and get into the structural conversation, which is the right way to go. And that's what makes me believe this can actually be sustainable. And one example of that, Marie, that I'm terribly proud of our friends at ABC, who have inspired the studios to raise the game as well when I was there, are the inclusion standards that ABC came out with, and they went public with it. And it's really a measure of accountability and time-bound and specific on what they are going to do and tackle, and they're holding themselves accountable to that. That is a shift. I have never seen that kind of level of accountability. And Netflix, to their credit, coming out with a report last week and a commitment to do so through 2026. So for me, that's the kind of stuff as a practitioner and as a strategist that tells me something different's going on, and it's something that I'm terribly proud of in terms of where both Disney is shifting to, and you can see those pieces, but you can see it happening in the wider industry. And I just want to shout out the British Film Institute, who was on the forefront of this thinking many years ago in the UK. And I like to shout out other countries who have come to conclusions faster for different reasons, and inspired the US. Because I think a lot of times we approach this from a US-centric point of view, and we have some things to learn from our partners in other countries. So I just want to shout them as part of that change.
No, I would acknowledge that in great measure. And on the news side, I would say that the BBC has been a real clear leader with things like the 50-50 challenge that they started kind of organically several years back, which was basic idea that they should have at least 50-50 representation in terms of the use of experts and other voices across their air, and really having that gender parity. And they found that they were able to hit those targets much faster than ever anticipated. And we're seeing a lot of that work now also coming across the pond. But Rosie, I'm so fascinated. I'm always fascinated whenever I get a chance to talk to somebody who works in that kind of technology sweet spot where it's, everything from entertainment to AI to other types of technology. And obviously there have been, a lot of conversations about the ways that tech overall have been trying to contend with a lot of the issues that we're talking about. But the interesting thing to me is that for someone like you all are really the ultimate success and strength of your business is a direct reflection, I think, of your ability to develop diverse teams. So I'd love to know more about how you all have approached this.
Yes, absolutely. We think of games as the perfect intersection of art and technology. And what we create is those interactive experiences that we expect our players to engage with for thousands of hours. We create those worlds that are meant to be immersive and meaningful and deep. And the only way players would engage in those for that amount of time is if they are their worlds. So to build that, we absolutely have to have diverse perspectives and diverse teams and a different point of view. And those are from simple things or straightforward things like, what character do I get to experience in this game, to what is my experience as a female gamer who joins a match on voice and experiences toxicity or has to deal with things that are not obvious to the majority of the players. What I find really interesting is, yes, you're absolutely right. This is a business imperative. And a few weeks ago, we reached a new frontier for the games industry, for the very first time, a study showed that female gamers over 18 years old, so adult female gamers, are a larger gamer population than adult male gamers. This is the type of data that makes this a business imperative, and it doesn't allow for any stretch in this or any other interpretation beyond, yes, it's incredibly important. Yes, it's a mandate. Yes, we have to invest in it. Not only that, the talent that comes to work for our studios, for our games, they demand that. And I'm so incredibly happy when this happens. This is the shift that I'm seeing. The expectation that when we're building a game studio, which is what I'm trying to do right now, we have certain commitments, we have certain expectations. And as the director of operations, I view this as a business goal. It is a business imperative. We are what we measure. So if we make it this goal, it's just another business goal that we can create a strategy to implement and accomplish. And that's our responsibility. So I have personal commitments around that. The leaders of the studio have personal commitments around that. I have built teams with gender parity. This is my ambition again, this time around, even though our industry has a long way to go. We are still around 25% female developers in the games industry. But I want to increase the number of female developers at our studio in the next 10 months by 10%. That is very tangible, that is very deliberate, and I believe this is what we need to be doing.
Well, you just hit us with the big D word, right? Which is data. And it's funny because I think data is such a driver of a lot of the decision making, that fuels opportunities in all of our different creative landscapes. And, I'll reflect briefly just to say that, I am trying to use data in a couple of different ways. One is, actually asking questions that have never been asked before. So part of it is the fact that that some of this data has yet to exist. And so if you're going to do this work and you are going to do it meaningfully, then you have to play, a pretty assertive role within your organization in terms of pushing to develop that new data. And then the other part of it is that it also puts you in a position of making sure that you are challenging the assumptions that people are using to drive the data that is also being leveraged to make decisions. And in real time, that stuff it's not easy. This isn't the sexy part of any of our jobs. But in some ways, I think for this to be like a lasting change and also developing that muscle, I think it's one of the things that will probably help a lot of this change have some longevity. So I'm a huge fan. Thanks for that. Kiana, I'm sorry. Was somebody jumping in?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. I was thinking about how we've all basically been in our own way saying that we feel this difference. There's been this shift recently in this past year, and I've been with my company for pros and cons, but for 10 years at this point, which is a really long time. We all know that, right? That's like old school ways of staying at a company forever. It feels like wasn't the plan, but I'm still here. I grew up in Berkeley of mixed race parents, so biracial. And I had, from a socioeconomic standpoint and a cultural standpoint, a very diverse upbringing in childhood, which I'm super thankful for. Went to Berkeley, so, right next door to Oakland, similar experience there. And so when I came into corporate, I was a little bit in shock, like being the only one in the room. And I was like pissed at my parents for a long period of time of like, wait, I was in a good way. You guys gave me this amazing diverse experience from, everything from a family standpoint, but also just the communities and the schools that they deliberately put me into. And so when I entered into corporate and I was like the only one, and you know, sitting at a table wondering, like, should I speak up? Should I say something? Depending on what topic was brought up, I'm getting everyone's looking at me as if I'm the representative of all Black people in the entire world. And I was, you know, resentful of that, right? And so, having been at CBS, Viacom CBS now for the past 10 years, I have seen the shift, in particular in the past 2-3 years, of all of a sudden, not only am I not the only one, but all of a sudden I'm like the popular one, right? It's like people all of a sudden actually really, it's not just cool to say you care and say that you are listening to what I have to say, or you really genuinely want to know what my experience has been in a company for this long, being a Black woman in a leadership position and a hiring manager. Like, what is that experience for me? You guys actually, all of a sudden, you do care. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So for the first 7 years of my career here, I'm kind of, you know, making my little moves and doing my posturing in a way that I feel like is safe for me, right? Because it's so ingrained in me to feel like I can't take any big risks, because I should just be, I'm happy to just be here and play it safe, Kiana, right? And then all of a sudden I felt more and more empowered in the shifts that I was seeing. And you know, for the most part, I want to believe quite genuinely that all of the changes I do see are people that they're really actually trying to make this difference, right? I'm attending the D&I events more, and it seems very, like I said, authentic and genuine. And it's like, this is the opportunity where I want to keep this momentum going, and I don't want it to just be the 2020, 2021, this was just a forced thing, right? I want that Black Lives Matter sign that you've now put at your desk or whatever is your background on Zoom. Don't just have it up because it's cool to have right now and we're all supposed to, right? From a PR standpoint, like, let's keep this going. Let's not make this just a shift that is just a temporary thing. What can we do to make this this is a forever move into a different direction. I don't need to be the only one at these board meetings anymore. You know, it's not where we're headed. And I think people are genuinely getting that if they're going to win, you know, in my case, the streaming wars, or continue to sit at the table with the Netflixes and the Disney Pluses, like we have to care from everything from representation on the content side, but also, you know, people like me that aren't necessarily at the front of it, but we're in the back offices, we're getting all this stuff and getting it out there. You know, it matters there as well. You're on mute, Marie, mute.
It's just self-muting now, like AI. There's some invisible hand out there. But I was gonna say, Kiana, tying your thoughts just now back to where Julianne started us off in terms of just like, you know, absolute rejection of erasure. You know, I think we are in that moment where, you know, there is something that has been let out of a bottle. And none of those folks are preparing to go back in anytime soon, that's for sure, which is its own, I think, challenge for some of the existing structures and paradigms. But I'm curious, and I know that you pushed us on this when we spoke earlier, you know, when we're talking about staying focused and staying kind of being in a solutions lane. I would love for us to have a little bit of conversation about solutions from our various perches, but specifically with an eye to risk taking. Because I think that you're absolutely right. I think that there was a time when it was considered very prudent to be, you know, careful and measured and taking very incremental approaches in terms of this work. But if we're in more of that moonshot space, that risk-taking space, I'd love to learn more from each of you where you feel like, you know, either A, you've hit it, or B, here's how I want to hit it. So Chris, I'm coming back to you.
Oh no.
I gave you a chance before. I gave you.
You did. I know, and I like. I jumped in head first. No, I think there's a couple of things. DreamWorks has been fantastic about sort of they put some tweets out, right? And they were like, this is what we're doing. And they've been doing that. You know what I mean? Like my brother and I co-directing a movie. And not only that, like the development of the movie, but listening to us and going like, who do you want? Like, what artists do you want? And that's going like, there's this dude in Africa, straight up, 2 of them that I'm like, I've been following them, I've been friends with them, and I love their work. I'm like, there's data. They have, between the 2 of them, they have 200,000 followers. They're doing some dope stuff. So let's get them in. They don't have any experience, but let's get them in and let's try them. And it was a home run for both of them right out the gate. There's another homie from Detroit, African-American brother, designer, no experience, but I'm like, I don't care. He's dope. Let's try him. And they're like, all right, let's go. And sure enough, there you go. For myself and my brother, them putting us in a producer position, right? Like not just going, you guys can direct and do the thing, but putting us in a producer position on a series, a couple of different series, and hearing us and going like, yo, you guys clearly have a vision. Like here's a position where you get to continue to bring in people and continue to voice your perspective. And our goal, DreamWorks, our goal is to hear you and to activate on that level continuously. And so it got to a point where it's like, whoa, that's a whole lot of stuff. Like we can't produce on 5 shows or whatever, but we know other individuals that can, and I'm going, give us their contact info, right? Like, so that very pragmatic, practical application of we mean what we say and let's do it. That's been the experience there. And to that end, these things take years to create and to make. And we've been on ours a year and a half there. And it's that same energy through and through. It's them going, no, it's not, that wasn't a gesture of kindness. That was activation. You guys are in the position to see this thing through, and we're going to continue that. And there's in every meeting, they're going, well, what do the guys think? What do the guys think? And what do the guys think? And then we go, well, what do our artists think? And what do they think? And so that level of sustainability has been so reassuring, right? Because to what Sister Kiana was saying, it's not a trend. This is not a trend. We're talking about an existence that really goes, here's what we are and here's what we do. And
so you're literally shifting the, the value proposition and getting us into a position where we are valuing talent over necessarily experience. And then you're also working in a way for uplifting voices and having that be something that you are seeing consistently across your projects, which to me is definitely something that sounds like success.
I don't know. It's just like, that's what it is, right? It has to keep moving. So you can't just, like put the thing there and let it stay there. No, it's going to die. It's what Julianne was saying earlier, right? Like evolve or die. And evolving is inclusion. I don't know. Like it just feels so that's it. Put them in place and let's move on that. Because from that, we will give birth to new ideas and new experiences across the board, video games, whatever it is. There's so much value to it, and it's happening, and I'm a part of that, and it feels great. It feels amazing, and I feel an opportunity and responsibility to keep it going wherever I can.
For sure. Kiana, I'm going to come back to you because I have a little bit of a competitive rivalry going on, obviously, with the CBS of it all, and the BET Viacom of it all in terms of what I do. But I always like to give people their props when I see something, because I think that when you see something out in the marketplace, it makes you feel like everybody's got to step their game up. And I like that. And so I was really pleased to see the announcement of some special projects, both the stuff that you all are doing with Soledad O'Brien, and then the special set of reports that CBS News has stood up. taking this critical examination, going back and revisiting really pivotal moments in Black life in this country. So whether it's the LA riots or Hurricane Katrina, you name it. And so yeah, I don't know how involved you may be or how aware you are of those specific projects, but I'd love to just have your sense of what success is looking like for you guys.
Yeah, not super involved on the news side, but I am aware of those projects. I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing, and this is even pre-shelter in place, and when we're back in the offices, is people aren't shying away when people are surfacing concerns, and when people are flagging that we need to do better from a hiring perspective. But also, I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing is the attention to retention and into recruitment. So I think a lot of there was a lot of I don't want to say turnover, but there was a lot of deeper analysis around why people of color were leaving and why people of color weren't necessarily getting a lot of the internal promotions that had been there and deserving and had been there for. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Marie fell somewhere.
We lost Marie. I'll just keep going. But yeah, I think the shifts that I've seen have just really been internally about the paying attention to to retention and into recruitment. And I think that has made a huge difference. I know, I'm a hiring manager of a smaller team, but I do know that people are quite intentional around really trying to hit for their own sake, right? Not because there's some mandate across the company, right? But they are really mindful of, especially on the engineering side and the dev side, they really they don't want there to be such an imbalance of women. They want more people of color of men. And I think that is something I'm really proud of for the company. And I've seen that change. I think too, we're trying to sit at this table. This is streaming wars. This is content wars. This is like not, you have no choice at this point, right? So even some of the older school, structural issues that are still there. It's not to say that they're not still there. I think even people that are of that generation in the company are also recognizing like, great, we're seeing such positive results from our competitors. Like we have to push ourselves to do this. And if a part of it is, being really transparent about the numbers and letting the internal data show, it's like that level of transparency I've never seen before. And I think like the first step is to like acknowledge the problem and then not shy away from questions around it. And, to then be held accountable, to your point, Julianne, to actually hitting those numbers and making those changes. And I just seen, a lot of people in power positions, making statements, putting out really hard, measurable commitments. And I think that is their way of holding themselves accountable. You can't put out a company-wide release saying you're going to do X, Y, Z and not do it at this point.
We all are hitting me with everything. You're hitting me with the D word, the A, the accountability, the T, the transparency. I mean, this is it. This is the crux of the matter. Rosie, and then I'll give you a word in here, Julianne, as we come up on the last few minutes of our time together.
Great. A quick announcement from our organizers. We're going 10 minutes late, so we are going to extend for another few minutes. Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I feel like I connect to a couple of things that Kiana and Julie and everyone has been saying. Taking creative risks and driving innovation is something that is no doubt driven by diversity of thought and diversity and experiences and diversity of every type. But for this to flourish, for this to be there, and for people that are different to function well together, work well together, be retained, and feel like they belong. What I believe, and I put a lot of effort and thought and passion into this, is this concept of psychological safety. This is the fundamental, deep way that predicts whether or not we can create a place where everybody feels that they could be their authentic self without fear of without interpersonal fear, without fear of failing. And this does two things. It creates a sense of belonging for people who are very different from each other, but also creates an atmosphere and ground which is very fertile for coming up with great ideas and for taking creative risks. So I think it's really fundamental and that's what I am trying to build at my studio, is this understanding and care and very tactical ways for our managers and every person on the team to know what this means, to care about it, to know what it looks like, to protect it, to grow it, to nourish it, because I believe that this will take us further down that road.
You know, I'm reading, there's some great questions. I'm going to actually, before I even toss to you, Julianne, I'm going to toss just a quick one out to Rosie, since we're with you. Marissa asks, you know, that you shared a great metric, increasing the number of female developers by 10% in 10 months. You know, how did you get the men to embrace that when they may be the ones making the hiring decisions?
It was, you know, for better or worse, I use two methods. First, it's ethically and morally right. And the second one, it's a business imperative. For us to accomplish our business goals, for us to get to our objectives, we absolutely need to do this. And then it doesn't become a conversation that has any more complications on top of that. So in an ideal world, it's a straightforward way to go about it. Unfortunately, I work with people who are incredibly receptive, and they made their own commitments. And this is why I love and value the team and the studio I work at. But it takes a lot of effort to make this into the norm. And it starts with the leadership, and it starts with us taking accountability and me putting my OKRs in front of the same team and saying, I shall commit to this. After which the rest of the leaders kind of said, I will support you and I will commit to the same thing. And that was a wonderful experience. And now we actually have to go and do the hard work. But I'm excited about it.
Well, I thank you for that. And so, Julianne, as you share with us, you know, your ideas in terms of some of the things that are in the solution space, there's another question that I think is kind of a little bit implicit in some of the things that we're talking about here, which is, you know, how do we actually get to the people who, in some ways, we do need to be listening to the kinds of conversations that are happening in this space, the kinds of conversations that are happening in our organizations. So since you've had some real, I think, success in terms of getting the ear of leadership, maybe you have some thoughts on that piece too.
Sorry to cut in for a second. We are out of time, but I definitely want to hear Julianne's answer to that. So why don't you wrap up that answer, and then we're going to move on to the salon session.
Oh, thanks. Is the salon session different from this conversation? Because I thought it was the Q&A of this conversation, or no?
It's actually a separate question where individuals will go and chat at tables about some of the proposals and solutions that they individually have to take back to their own lives. So everyone will return to the tables, but I'll give some instructions when Julianne's done with her answer, because I don't want to cut her off.
Of course. Apologies. I thought we had an additional 10 minutes. All right. Please, Julianne, over to you.
No worries. And I'll try to be quick about it too. Rosie, what you were saying was really speaking to me, and Kiana earlier, what you were talking about on the retention piece is culture. The quote I love is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what we're really talking about is culture shift at the end of the day. And it ties back kind of in everything you were saying. Like, Rosie, I love what you were talking about, because you were just saying, as leadership, this is how we are going to operate as a company. It does not go beyond a conversation beyond that, right? And that's the stake in the ground. And so I think it's really critical what you just said there, because as you said, it didn't have to be more complicated than that. Like, it's good business. It's the only way we're going to survive. So we're doing it, period, full stop. And I think that is a really powerful lesson for any of the leaders who are listening into this conversation. If you are in a decision-making position of any kind, please take that back with you. The other part of it too is, because culture eats strategy for breakfast, when you go back, Chris, to what you were talking about, which is that it's not about the experience, right? It's about the talent. What we're really also saying there is about cultural competency, right? What you need and what anybody needs in organizations right now are people with high cultural competency. Guess who has high cultural competency? All the folks who have had to navigate, right, as being the lonely only, as my old team likes to say, in any space, place, or position. Right? They're going to bring cultural competency with them. They've had to code switch, right, their whole lives. And so, as my dad jokingly says, you might have just gotten woke, but she's already having dinner. So you need all the people who are having dinner coming into your organization. That's really what we're talking about. So it's about what criteria are you weighing when you're looking to bring people in the organization. And then that's going to shift the kinds of folks you have operating in your organization, which then in turn, right, Rosie, with your leadership piece, sets a new culture forward altogether. And that's the thing I was going to add, which is it's really important that everybody, and this goes, Marie, to your question, that everybody feels a stake in the company culture moving forward. It's essential. It's called co-creation, often in the technology space, which means that you need to co-create together what your group wants to do and function like. And it's not that it is just one leader who sets the tone. It's really important that the leader sets the tone, but the end all be all can't be with that one person. It has to be every single person in the organization weighing in, right? Whether that's through survey work, focus groups, right? Having conversations regularly with employees, cross sections of employees getting together. I think that's one of the biggest learnings, Marie, from our work together at Disney, which is the magic in getting people together from different departments to move your culture forward. So it is really about that co-creation aspect. And what does that look like and feel like for your group? And so for me, that's actually how you get engaged the folks who might not necessarily be tuned in to the conversation. You say, hey, we're going to form a new culture at this company together, or at this organization together, or on this project together. Let's talk about it all together. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What hasn't been working for you? Ask the question to everybody, not just the most affected group. The most affected group is going to give you some great stuff for the whole, but you need to ask everybody. And that I have always found to be a successful way, especially to engage those who don't necessarily feel like I have been a part of the conversation because they've been in the majority necessarily, or that they have felt shut down previously, and it re-engages them. So that's kind of my advice, reflecting, Marie, on your question and kind of on folks' thoughts earlier, which were awesome.
Lest you think that I'm texting while Julianne's talking, I'm just putting it in here forever. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yeah, I just can't thank you all enough. I can't thank you enough for the work that you do to advance this space, and I can't thank you enough for your time today. And so I hand it back over to you, Nick.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. I wish that we could actually listen to you talk together all day. You just are really, really incredible people. So thank you so much. We are so incredibly grateful for your time and your conversation. Now we're going to move on to the salon sessions. In a moment, you're going to be moved from this presentation mode back into the virtual expo hall, which was like those little tables you were seated at before you came into the presentation. Hopefully you'll be seated with other attendees. If not, please double click on a table where you see others seated. And we encourage you to turn on your camera and your mic at that point. During this time, we're asking you to discuss and address the salon session questions, which have just been chatted by Hillary a second ago. And then we're going to join back together and share and discuss potential solutions. For those of you who have been able to join the BRIC Summit in person in the past, this is a really important part of the BRIC Summit. Attendees are a big part of creating solutions And it's one of the main goals, because that's really the way that we can all go back into our regular lives and make change on our own. So please do join if you're able to. If you're not able to join the chat, but you're able to fill out your ideas in the Google form, we really appreciate that as well. So we're gonna give you guys 10 minutes, and then we're just gonna do a 5-minute recap at the end. So thank you guys again. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.